What's going on, guys? Today we're going to be installing some new Bilstein shocks into the Townace. This in conjunction with some tweaking on the torsion bars will get you to roughly a 2-inch lift. The shocks that are in my truck right now are very worn out, so these, from some research on some forums, are ones that will fit. You can see the model number here. These are the ones that will fit. These initially are for a 2000 Dodge Durango 4-wheel drive. To get these to fit, you'll just have to trim off a little bit of material here and a little bit of material here, and I can show you guys what that looks like a little bit later. So yeah, these are the new shocks, and hopefully we'll get some extra height out of the truck. So going over to the truck, the first thing you're going to want to do is jack the truck up and make sure that the truck's properly supported. It's not going to fall down, stuff like that, you know. And next we're going to remove the old shock. I sprayed some penetrating oil on mine so it could come off easier, and I actually already loosened up this top part. So basically just unscrew this nut on top. To get that nut to unscrew, this will rotate. So there's a little, just kind of a flat spot on the top of this. And since I'm not worried about saving these shocks at all, I gripped onto this with just a pair of vice grips and then turned the nut. And then, you know, it eventually came off. So yeah, so we're gonna remove this top, and we're going to remove this bolt and nut on the bottom, and that's pretty much it. All right, got both bolts out. So now it's a little easier if you just slide the bottom out towards the wheel. It's a little easier if the wheel is off as well. And then it just comes right out, just like that. Okay, so now we move on to our new shocks. So now what we want to do with the new shock is take a little bit of material off this side, a little bit of material off this side. I believe it's about 1/8 of an inch roughly on each. My method really is to just use a grinder, get it as flat as I can, then go back to the truck, check and see if it fits, see where I need to take more material off, take a little bit more off, and just kind of keep doing that until it fits between the two rabbit ears on the truck. You know, you can always take more material off, but you can't put material back on. So take your time with this step. So after your shock is ground down, it should look something like this for the most part. So next, before you try to install this, you want to make sure that this fits in between the ears, the ear mount at the bottom. And it's best to push the bolt all the way through as well. Make sure the bolt can go in before you try to install the shock, because you have to compress it pretty far up against the top and then slide the bottom in. So if you can't get the bolt in, it really sucks. Okay, this is just a test, but the bolt is through. The shock is in between the ears. So now we're going to take this out and put the top of the shock through the associated upper shock mount hole, and then we'll worry about getting this lower portion of the shock bolted in place. So for the upper shock mount, what we're going to want to do is take some of the supplied Bilstein hardware here. We're going to put one of these washers down here like this, the flat side. Then the tapered part goes on top, so we'll push that all the way down like this, and then the upper portion of the shock mount will rest right here, and then we will mirror on the other side with these two guys, and then this nut goes on top. This differs slightly from how the initial Townace shocks are. Here's one of the old ones right here. So it has this right here, which is fine. It rests on the shock mount right here, and then it is mirrored with one of these guys. So it goes this washer, another rubber, and then another washer on top, and then a nut. But this rubber is a lot thinner, and generally the design of a Durango shock or these bumpers, if you will, is just slightly different. But these are so thick that I'm going to run them like this instead of putting another one of these spacers on. There's not really that much room with once you get it in, there's really not that many threads up top for the nuts. These get compressed quite a bit. So personally, I just don't want to run another one of these. I mean, anybody that's doing this could. You just have to use one of your old ones from the old shock. So pretty much you just go like this. And then on the upper side of the shock mount, you would just put another one of these right here as well. So that's just what I'm doing. I'm just doing this. So see you in there. All right, so the bottom mount of the shock is secured now. Make sure to torque that down. That's pretty much it for the bottom shock, or the bottom mount. So now, just gotta put on the top, which is the easy part. This bottom part can be a little bit tricky. It was easier for me to put the bolt in reversed, honestly. It's very difficult to slide a bolt in from that other side, and you have to compress the shock quite a bit to get it to go in here. So this was just easier for me. Yeah, so now we'll put the top on. So for this top, you're gonna wanna put it on just like this with the tapered side down low, and then you're going to need an Allen key into the top here. You wanna hold that in there. There's a spot for an Allen key at the top of that, is what I'm trying to say. Can't hold the phone with both. And then you're just gonna wanna tighten that nut down until it's where you want it. All right, guys, so that is pretty much it. Now we got our new Bilstein shock installed, so now we're just going to set the truck down and make any additional adjustments with the torsion bars as needed. I hope you found this guide helpful. Please let me know if there's anything specific you'd like to see in the future. Thank you, appreciate it.